Exercise A07 is your little review on loops, loop statement. Okay, so we are going to have a couple of loops, including nested loops here. Control of sanitization of input, making sure that the value are in the range there should be expected to be, etc., etc. So it's still review stuff. We're going to learn to do it in C, and we're going to mostly make sure that nobody in this class still has issues with those basic programming constructs. So here's a boilerplate code. Okay, what do we need to do? Well, looking at the example is going to give you a good idea already of what you need to do. A program that keep reading grades between 0 and 100 inclusive. If you enter something outside of 0 100 interval, you have an error message, and the same grade is requested again from you. And then when the user enters something negative, well, you just tell them, well, this is your running total for all the grade. This is the number of grades you entered, not including, of course, the -1 or any erroneous grade. And this is the average. So let's get moving. This is going to be a classic traditional exercise that is requested often in introductory courses. So let's get started by the main structure, okay? What do we need to do? We need to read a grade, test if this grade is correct. If it's not correct, we keep reading it again. Okay, so let's try to do that just once. Process only one grade. Reading a grade and making sure it's in a correct range would be a matter of a do while loop. Okay, why? Sorry, because we need first to scanf the grade, read the grade, and then we can test. And if it's not correct, we scanf again, and we keep going like that. Okay, so let's do printf, enter grade number. I'm going to use here another variable n. So I'm going to display comma n. So I need a variable n, which is going to be initially n equal 0, let's say. And this is going to be the number of my grade. I look real quick to the description of my problem. Grade starts at 1, so I can either do it here or I can increment at the beginning. I'll choose to start at 0 and then increment immediately. So I will do n++ before to start asking for that grade number n. What else? Please enter the grade number n. I need to read it. Scanf. %d, the grade is an integer. Ampersand, and I'm going to store this in a variable named grade, which I need therefore to declare grade equal 0. Okay, what is going to be my condition? While grade is lesser strict than 0, and or grade is greater strict than 100, and I'm going to parenthesize this Greek. While these two conditions are, if ever one of those that is true, I keep recursing my grade. So if it's too small or if it's too big, I keep recursing again my grade. Let's save. Try to compile this and just test this little segment of my code. GCC 807, a.out, enter grade number 1, -1, enter it again, 900, enter it again, 100. This one is going through. Okay, so it looks like we're doing the job, except we didn't display any error message. And this would be kind of tricky actually here. Let's see why. Well, I start by asking the grade, and then while those conditions are met, I keep asking it again. So where should I put my error message? Here. If I put it here, it's going to be displayed every time. So there's a little bit of a snafu here. So let me try this differently. I'm going to take this, if I can, I'm going to take this condition here. There we go. Take this condition away. Make a while one loop. What is that? An infinite loop. Okay. And then what? I'm going to test here if this condition is true. If this condition is true, that means there is a problem. So printf, and I don't remember the exact message, so I'm going to look it up. Please enter values in the 0, 100 range only. Okay, sure. Please enter values in the 0, 100 inclusive range only, \n. That's my error message. And then what do? Well, I do nothing. Else, if actually my grade is correct, then I can choose to break out of this loop. So the loop is just standing by here, infinite loop. The condition is irrelevant. And at this point, I could even use a while instead of a do while. I would not make a difference. But here is where the logic of the exit of the loop is implemented. If there is a problem, then display an error message. Go back, resume the loop. If there is no problem, if there are no problem, then break out of the loop. Well, it looks good on paper. Let's test. Go back to Conqueror. Compiles OK. Enter grade, 900. No, error message. Enter grade, -1, error message. Enter grade, 100. We're good. So this is a tidbit of code that you're going to reuse quite a couple of times, okay? How to make sure that a value you just read is within a certain range. So this is almost like a pattern. Okay, so we can read a grade, and it's important that you understand how to attack this kind of problem. I could have attacked it by building the overall structure of the code and then filling in the blank. I chose to attack it by starting with a detail. How do I read a grade? And then progressively build the whole picture. So whichever way you go is fine, as long as you do what I'm doing right now, which is stop often, test often, compile often to make sure you are still on the correct path. Okay? All right. So we have here the code to read one grade. What do we need to do now? We need to keep reading grades until what? Until -1 is entered. So first approximation, it seems to me, and this is how you do programming, you make hypotheses pretty much. It seems to me that I should use a do while loop. I'm not quite sure yet what my while condition will be, so I leave it blank, and I'll think about it as I try to refine my infrastructure here. So do would mean increment the number of the grade, make sure we get a correct grade. And then I'm going to do some computation with it. For now, I leave that blank. I just want to keep getting grades until what? Until -1 was entered. So I'm going to have an issue here, because here, if the number is negative, which means get me out of the loop, I display an error message. Then I keep asking for another grade. So maybe this now, retrospectively, was a bad idea. Let me just display an error message if the grade is too big. Okay, let's use that as a start point. If the grade is too big, I display an error message. If it's too small, I let it go. I let it go until what? Well, as soon as I'm done reading that grade, I'm going to have to get rid of it. Because here, somewhere here, I will have add this grade to total for the average, okay? And if I do in my while condition here the test of if the grade is lesser than 0, I quit, which means while grade greater or equal to 0, I continue. If I do the test here, I will do that test once again after I was done adding this grade to the total. So this is not working. This is not a good idea. So let me take this condition here. And instead, I'm going to make another of those while one loop, infinite loop. And before to do anything about the grade added to a total, etc., I'm going to test it. If grade is lesser strict than 0, then what? Break out of this loop. Okay. All right. Now I can take care of this real quick. Add this grade to total. Well, I need a variable, let's call it sum, plus equal grade. And I'm going to keep accumulating its sum, all the grades that have been entered. Int sum equal 0. How does that look? Well, I'm not sure. Let's save it and let's test it. Okay, it's saved. Let's compile. First, get rid of compilation error. It looks okay. Let's run. Enter grade 1, 900. Grade 1 again. Let's do 100. Grade 2, 900. The test still works. Grade 2, 100. Accepted. Grade 3, -1. I quit. Okay, looks like it's working. So now what we need to do is display some information after this loop to see exactly what we have. Printf, and you see how the exercise requires you to do these things, okay? Average is the total divided by the number of grade equal the result. So, average. It's important that when I ask you, especially in an exam, to display things a certain way on the screen, you respect that way, because there are going to be, in most cases, automated testing environment to make sure your program is working. And if you don't do what you are requested, I will not go into each individually program to figure out how close you are. Okay, if I ask you to display 3 stars on the screen, your job is to display 3 stars on the screen. This is actually a good training for when you will have actually to work in a company where you're not going to invent interfaces, invent output, etc., to just fit what you can do or what you feel like doing at the moment. Okay, so it's really important that you follow those syntax here, especially during exam. So I need to display total divided by the number of grades, sorry, and is equal to a floating point number, which I'm going to compute. So my total will be sum, the number of grades will be n, and then sum divided by n will be my average. I have here to convert sum into double. Why? Because sum is int, n is int. Divide an int by an int, you get an int. So this is not going to give me a floating point number I expect. By converting sum to double, sum is now a double, a floating point number. Floating point number divided by int results in a floating point number, which is exactly what I'm needing here for this printf statement. Save the program. Well, let's see how it's working right now, and then we'll adjust. Compile. Run. Grade number 1. Well, let's take something simple, okay? 100. Grade number 2, 50. That should give me an average of 75. Grade number 3, minus 1. Okay, 150 divided by 3 equal 50. Well, what's happening here? Obviously, the code is not doing the job. If you just quit here and say, well, the code is not doing the job, let me go back to the code and change things randomly and I'll figure out, if it works better. You are not programming. So let's try to do something a little smarter here. The information I can gain from this run, okay, is that with the test case 150 minus 1, I get here 3 grades, which means this one was counted. Once I understand that, then I can go back to the code and try to figure out what I did wrong. I increment my number of grade here before to read the grade. Well, that makes sense, except that what if I type minus 1? Well, I already incremented my count of grades. So this count as a grade. Instead of that, if I do it here, I increment the number of the grade only once I'm sure this is a valid grade. So let's try this modification. I save. I'm going to compile. I'm going to run. Let's try the same test case. 150 minus 1. You will notice a couple of things. First, this is working better. However, this is starting grades number at 0. Temptation is to say, well, yeah, but the code is still working. No, you were asked to do this. You were asked to start your grade at 1. You need to start your grade at 1. Otherwise, you're going to lose points, possibly all of your points, because simply stated, your code is quite not doing what was requested of you. How do you fix this problem? And plus 1 here. That will not force us to change where we increment the number of grades, and that should do its job just fine. Compile, execute. Same test case, 150 minus 1. Average 75. I didn't count the extra grade, I'm starting counting at 1. This looks like we are doing what is requested of us. Okay, so here's the code. There is more testing that is necessary at that point. So make sure that you develop a test harness that is more complete than just this example, and that guarantees that your code is actually behaving correctly in every possible scenario.